Well, what you would notice before we finish the documentary, and I think you'll eventually get to why the documentary is so enraging.
Yeah.
But the difference between the 90s American Gladiators and the reboot, you had some very interesting things to say.
The reboot, the 2008 reboot, which had Gina Carano on it as Crush, who's my favorite gladiator. And she turned out for a good reason to be my favorite gladiator. I didn't know it at the time. But the 2008 was so after the switch. I don't know what that switch was, but there was a switch in American culture. I covered it on the media that ruined Gen Z.
Yeah. Underrated video. That was very well said, all of it.
People like cult stuff. It's okay. I'm fine with that. But I covered it on the media that ruined Gen Z, and this happened after the switch.
Yeah.
So it was very dramatic. They were trying to make the stories overly dramatic about the contestants and so forth.
Yeah, manufactured drama and manufactured tension between the gladiators and the competitors, and it felt very fake and forced.
Forced and mean-spirited.
Yeah. Because I think
nice.
what you when you watch the original American Gladiators, the sportsmanship is like something you like.
Yeah. They go up and they're like, oh my God, these guys are amazing. I'm just honored to get my ass kicked by these guys.
Right.
And
show some respect. These people work very hard.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of respect.
And they don't make a lot of money.
They didn't make a lot of money. But then the 2008 version, it's like, yeah, I'm going to show them what is. Like, you're really going to show this 6'4" guy on clearly a lot of steroids. I think in the 90s version, you could kind of be like, well, maybe he's big, maybe.
But anyway, the difference between the 90s and the 2000s, I noticed in the documentary they pointed out that there was no reality TV really
in the early 90s.
It started in 89, a year after Star Trek Next Generation.
Yeah, and in the documentary, they showed how people thought the American Gladiators would be the downfall of civilization because there was no story. It wasn't beautiful. There wasn't a character arc. It was just these big guys pummeling each other. And we look back on it now, and we're like, oh my God, what a good, positive message to keep people
honest television.
Yeah, well, to keep people fit, to battle the obesity epidemic. Like, there wasn't an obesity epidemic back then. So there was no need to battle it. So they thought that this was just pure trash.
Yeah, that's what we had paused it. And when, who was it? Walter Matthau or somebody was on TV like...
Dan Rather. It wasn't Dan Rather. Oh, it was whatever.
One of them respectable journalist
thinks
guys.
He's better than people.
What did he call it? He said, unfortunately, the newest trend in television.
Unfortunately. But you know what? They didn't have the obesity epidemic, but they didn't have adults that were standard as fit as we have now. We have a whole strain of adults who are just...
Yeah, fitness culture.
Yeah, they're into fitness culture. They're still athletes. They're just not competitive athletes.
Right.
And back in the day, what your dad had to go through, he did sports all the way through college. Or not college, sorry. He didn't go to college, but he went to high school. Lots of sports all the way through high school and then just stopped. Mm-hmm. And then I just fought people in the streets because he had too much.
A little bit.
He fought a lot of people. He still fights people.
He uses his words.
Yeah, but if those don't work.
My dad is not fighting people in the street.
Not anymore. Up until a few years ago, your dad was just fighting people. But now, if he had grown up now, he could be part of fitness culture. He could go to CrossFit. My father is a sweet man. He is the sweetest man. He'll fight to defend the honor of the downtrodden.
Of just random people on the street.
Yeah, because if he thinks you're messing with some guy who might be mentally handicapped, he'll fight you. And it's like, whoa, that's not what happened. You misunderstood the situation, sir. But he's great. No, he's great. I love your dad. Your dad performed our wedding.
He did.
I asked for that. I love your dad. And if anyone had stood up when he said, does anyone know why these two shouldn't have gotten married? He would have fought him.
Yeah, he would have. It's funny. Anyway, it's interesting to watch the first run of American Gladiators and then skip ahead and watch 10 years later because of just the Americanization of it. Just we were in full mid to late 2000s television, which was probably the worst era for television.
Yeah, in that video I covered the media that ruined Gen Z. it was about 2003 to 2013 where it just went downhill, completely downhill. And I wonder now if that was as the market was crashing. Because you saw people that were desperate for that money. They were desperate for that $100,000.
Yeah, the whole show in the 90s felt so positive. People were just like, yeah, I'm here to, test my strength. And then in the 2008 reboot, they had to give everybody's like emotional backstory about why they needed that money.
And they needed it.
It was
they
depressing.
Desperately needed that money. There's one guy, I think it was Adonis. Don't quote me on that, but his mother was going to Iraq. His mother had already served 2 tours in Iraq, and it's not. I guess it wasn't voluntary. I guess she really needed the money because he's like, if I get this $100,000, I'm gonna keep my mama from going back to Iraq.
To Bush's oil wars.
Yeah, Bush's oil wars in Iraq. And nobody wanted, but his mother was basically, she was a soldier.
Yeah.
And first of all, how old is he? He was like 24. So how old is his mom? So his mom's like 40, and she still has to fight these wars just to pay her bills.
That's wild.
And he doesn't want her to die in Iraq.
And then there was one woman who wanted to get her mother out of the trailer park, which was very sad.
The lady looked like Denise Richards.
Yes.
She was a bull rider, and she's like, my mother lives in this trailer park, and if I get this $100,000, I can put her in a house that has a foundation. And like that was a big deal to her. It's amazing.
What did she call it? He said, this was real American Hunger Games.
This is the Hunger Games.
If it had continued, it would have gotten there for sure.
It was already Hunger Games. What do we need more than that? It's life and death keeping your mom out of war.
When they reboot it this year, I don't know if there are plans to, but should they reboot it, I think the stories would just be so sad.
Oh, God. I'd watch it, and I think they should do it on a subscription service. I think they could get enough people to pay $5 a month to watch American Gladiator. So they don't have to worry about the sponsorships or any of that nonsense. And yeah, the stories, oh my God. It wouldn't be that we're going to wars anymore. It would be like people are fighting wars with themselves. So even the money might not even help, but we're doing our best. I'd feel bad going on American Gladiators and somebody who like really needs the money. I'm going against someone who like really needs the money. Like we just want to get a house and, they want to get their brother off of fentanyl.
How many of those would there be?
It would be constant. And they would be more motivated than us. They'd like crawl over glass to get their brother some rehab treatments. It would be so expensive. And it's just like, I got to do this or my family's ruined.
They need to bring back American Gladiators every 10 years as like a temperature check.
Of the country.
Yeah.
How
we doing?
Yeah, I think the contenders now, not the Gladiators, but the contenders would be jacked. Mm-hmm. I think they'd be on steroids too.
Well, because now what do we have? We have American Ninja Warrior. There's a couple things. I know Netflix has got something similar.
Yeah, but the thing is the Gladiators.
Yeah.
It was the Gladiators. The Gladiators were the star of that show.
It was like a good mix of football and wrestling.
Yeah.
But it was real. They didn't fake it. They didn't fake anything. So you still had to compete against these guys.
Hey, this is an excerpt from my Patreon-only podcast. This week we talk about American Gladiators. We get into the laptop classes and what is wrong with Hollywood. Tune in.